Hey guys, Toby Mathis here. And a question we get quite often is how are banks and the media actually ripping me off? It's kind of a mean one, right? It means that we're painting them in a bad light. Now, I'm going to say that I always say that they're marketing in a particular way. So the media sells their marketing, the banks sell their services. And there's nothing wrong with that. I look at capitalism and I say, great thing, best thing, but you have to arm yourself with some knowledge so you don't get misled. One of the things that they're really good at is painting the loan that they give you as benevolence instead of as what it actually is. It's a big liability to you and it's an asset to them. If you listen to the marketing, you'd think it's the other way around. The easiest way to conceptualize this is when you go and you start looking at a house. Let's say you're going to go buy a house. The mortgage companies get brought in right away to say, how much house can I afford? And they use some factors. And you have to be very careful here because you got to remember a very simple way to know whether something is an asset or a liability is if it's removing money from your bank account on a monthly basis, it is a liability. And if you are going to buy a liability with another liability, in other words, even if I did not have a loan on a house, it's still going to pull money out. And if I get a loan on it, it's going to pull even more money out. And I used to say to people, I've never seen a foreclosure or somebody get into big financial trouble without the liability of debt. And so one of the things the bank and the media are really good at is is enticing us to take on as big a liability as we can by using another liability to fund it. And you have to combat this by saying, what is the actual amount I can afford to pay to live in a home for, shelter, food, transportation, things like that. Create an actual budget so that you're not putting yourself in massive amounts of strain. And if you don't know how to do all this, you can pop into Infinity Investing and infinityinvesting.com, and you can start running the numbers and you can see this is what I should be paying and I can replace it. So like for example, if I could rent a place that's suitable for me and my family for $1,500 a month, then that's what I should be budgeting as far as replacing that by acquiring a home. If I'm going to buy a house, then that's what I should be budgeting. I should be looking at everything. I should be looking at the property taxes, the insurance, maintenance, any debt service, all those things, and add them up to see what I could actually afford, not how much I would qualify for, how much of a liability they could saddle me with, because they're going to push you right up to the limit where it's very uncomfortable. A lot of people found this out the hard way. They go out, they get as much of a house as they can possibly afford, and they have this massive liability. And any disruption, whether it be pandemic, whether it be a recession, illness, whatever, any disruption causes you to lose the very thing that you think of as an asset, the home. And then you end up with foreclosures or you miss payments and your credit gets torn up and interest rates go up and they start calling other things due. And it's a waterfall effect, it's cascading. So all of a sudden, everything gets more expensive, everything gets more difficult simply because you were told I could afford it. You could afford it if things don't change right now, but it's not what you need. It's not what you actually should be paying, and you're overstretching yourself. So, what other items are they really good at getting us to want to get? Things like cars. Again, does a car put money in your pocket every month or does it take it out? Unless you're a Uber driver or Uber Eats or DoorDash or any of those, or taxi or whatever, Lyft, unless you're one of those, there's 99% certainty that that's just pulling money out, right? You're not generating any revenue off of your car. It's actually a liability. So now we go out and we buy that liability with another liability, a loan, which is an asset to the bank. Just think about the way the bank's looking at it. The reason that they want you to do this is because it's an asset on their books. They're getting paid to loan you that money. But what you did is you bought a liability with a liability. And they're really good at tricking us into thinking that, certain things are reasonable. They'll do 60 months, no interest to get you to take on that big fat liability. Oh, pay more for the car. And the interest is essentially built in. Or they'll entice you, you need this new car, you need this great thing. And they're constantly promoting and saying this is something that you get, or you've really arrived if you get this. And you just see the constant barrage of marketing that's hitting us. And the next thing you know, you're thinking it's inadequate to have an older car and or something that you bought for cash, and you're starting to try to stretch because somebody told you you could afford it, you could qualify for this loan, so you start to stretch to take these on. Another example is when you start looking at what's gone on at schools where tuition is literally tripled over the last decade. It's crazy how high and I say that I'm not looking at a stat, but I know that they've tripled. I think probably since 2010, it's just gone up exponentially to get an education. It's just we've seen it just jump. But they're saying, oh, it's worth it. You're going to get this education, and it's worth this $1 million and stuff. And nobody's sitting there and penciling out, well, what's my degree worth? Nobody's penciling that out, saying, how much is the average salary if I obtain this degree? I'm going to go in for 200,000. This is what I should expect to generate. I'm giving up this much money over the period of time to obtain the degree, whether it's for 5 years. Sometimes you might even be just a 2-year degree or some sort of specialty degree. But you need to crunch those numbers to see whether economically it makes sense for you to take on a liability to do it, because a lot of us do it via loans. Now, I'm not saying it's never going to work. I'm just going to say that, in my view, a lot of the English majors are subsidizing the engineers or the pre-meds, right? That those degrees, some degrees are worth a tremendous amount. The engineering degrees are worth quite a bit, whereas some of the other degrees may be even worth less than the mean income for an average American. So you start comparing it, saying, is this actually going to improve my station? In which case, the answer is no. Then I'd be telling you, don't be going into debt for it, because now you have something that's not adding value and you're getting a liability. You're doing a liability. Not saying don't do it. You just may want to work for it and pay it as you go, so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're job poor, or income poor, and you have this huge liability that's been compounding while you're in school, and all of a sudden you get out and you have this big student loan payment, and you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I feel like I'm working for the bank. And that's how they trick us. They get us to want these things that, in essence, a lot of the times are liabilities, and they get us to do it by putting ourselves into debt, which is another liability. And I call that a big no-no. You don't want to be buying liabilities with liabilities. You want to be creating an asset base that then that income can pay for those liabilities, if you want to be reasonable. Sometimes that just means taking a breather, slow the roll. Maybe I need to step back for a second, crunch the numbers, and make sure that I'm making an intelligent decision about something. I don't always have to have a brand new car, right? Maybe I'm going to save up. Maybe I'm going to wait. Maybe I'm going to put my money instead into some assets, some dividend paying stocks or something, and allowing it to grow and compound for a period of time, so that I could use that money to help offset some of that cost. So it's not all on me. I'm not having to carry that burden all myself. So I say it kind of crass that that the banks and the media and financial institutions quite often are ripping us off. And I say it's because they're doing it deliberately. They're marketing, but it's ultimately up to you to be able to see through some of the marketing. Again, like, sometimes I look at popsicle boxes. You'll see a popsicle box and it'll be SpongeBob SquarePants. And you see what it looks like on the box. Like, oh, this is what the popsicle is going to look like. And you know dang well that you open it up and it's going to look like anything other than what's on the box. Or even better yet, you go to McDonald's and you pick up like, we're smart enough to know that's probably not what it's going to look like. It looks good, but we know it's not that. But marketing is like that in all things. Hey, everybody thinks, oh, this is the greatest thing, the American dream. But it could also very quickly turn into the American nightmare, simply because you ate with your eyes. There we go. You're buying the things because you want them, and because they're creating this desire in you. and it's overcoming your rational sense. If you want to combat that, get the pencil out, calculate, calculate, calculate. Just sit there and really crunch those numbers to make sure that you don't end up being a victim of their marketing.